As children of colonized people, we have two major psychological blockers. One is the external validation of our own ideas. We need that, we crave that. First it was the British, and now we crave American validation, whether it's what we wear, what beauty products we use, what awards we get, whose psychological theories we believe, which social justice causes we support and which we don't. And second is the internalized shame that has much more deep-rooted roots in trauma theory than we actually ascribe to. I have just about started writing about it. It is in my own book, but in my future work also, I will continue to write about this. It is this deep problem that we have, that somehow we attribute rationalism to Western frameworks and irrationalism to our own frameworks, just because they are different, right? And having done this again and again, having seen this on social media, you see the last 5 years of peak wokeism, right, took over. Why? Because somehow suddenly there was a wave of money and funding that was put into many mental health research, books and causes. Who knows who did it politically, globally, but somebody did it. And because of that, we had suddenly TikTok, Instagram, like really pushing algorithms when people were talking about mental health, which was all wonderful. We needed to talk about mental health. Trauma was a repressed subject and still is a repressed subject in our culture. However, whose voices were pedestalized? Even today, if you see influencers, people like who talk about certain social justice causes, right? Why are they pushed up on certain algorithms and why are they repressed on other algorithms? There's a much bigger nexus at play here, and practitioners who graduate from colleges, program directors, students, they are the ones who end up receiving, who are at the receiving end of this stuff. Unconsciously, we absorb culture, we absorb trends as the latest thing to do, and we reinforce these in our client work and in medicine, which is where the problem begins, because the binary of oppressor oppressed has now become so normal in any urban elite therapist, especially people who are educated abroad and who move back to India and things like that, that it's really scary, almost ethically harmful to understand what they might be doing in the therapy room if they're looking at a human just as oppressor versus oppressed. And then you translate that to like years and years of social justice cancellation and trends coming and going, and suddenly every therapist wants to talk about every cause that they may have no idea about. They may have never even visited that country, but they're like overtaken by this kind of activist guilt, right? I talk about this all the time in my trainings, but I specifically see this with young Indian therapists with not much work experience. And I'm able to tell, like, have you actually done jobs in the grassroots? Do you know how this culture functions? It's definitely not as binary as you're painting it to be. And then comes the problem that when America starts to say the same thing that people have been saying here, right? Non-binariness, diverse views, multiculturalism, suddenly there's like a brainwave that goes on, and suddenly these people change their minds and are like, no, I'm decolonial too. Sure, but what about all the time that you were talking about being, like oppressor versus oppressed, and training your clients to believe your political views, not seeing certain clients because you didn't agree with their politics, shaming people for having diverse opinions within your same culture? What about that? What about the harm that you caused through your entire influence? Now, this is like, mark my words, there's going to be a time where most people are going to become decolonial, and they're going to see the fallacies of these frameworks, they're going to see the ideological brainwashing, they're going to go back to skills, and they're going to feel really terribly underskilled. This is colonial trauma all the way back, right in our faces.